Ford Ecoboost 1 litre wet belt. Let me show you how it's done. Ford Ecoboost 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine with a wet belt. Now this has come in with 93,000 miles on it. I have no idea what the history is. The oil light is on, the engine management light's on. So I suspect the wet belt is starting to disintegrate and it's blocking the oil pickup pipe. But before I strip the top end down to actually replace the belt, let's drain the oil, take the sump off and just see if there's any debris in there. So check the engine management codes and it's saying there is a camshaft sensor fault. There's 2 faults there, both cams. So basically the belt is so slack or worn, the cams are getting out of line. This thing was actually ready to self-destruct anytime. So as I said, let's whip the sump off. Let's see what we can find in there. Now Ford in their wisdom, we've got to take the exhaust off, which is bolted up there. The exhaust comes along here, take that bracket off, and then there's 2 bolts on this flange, but they put the bolts facing upwards, so you can't get at them, and they're rusted and really horrible to get at. Ford, what the? Well, after an incredible amount of time and a lot of swearing, I got the exhaust off. Now, take the sump off. Need to take the aircon pump off, get that out of the way, unbolt all the sump, and off we go. The oil doesn't look good. There's a lot of bits and pieces in there, so we'll get the sump off and see what's really going on. Well, that's the sump off, and it's full of bits of belt. No surprise. And the oil pickup pipe. Yuck. That's just blocked solid with stuff. So that's why the oil light was on. Not good. Right, look inside here. This is the, oh, I would say that is definitely bits of belt. Can't even get it out. So I think we'll be looking at a new oil pump here. Ooh. Be interesting to get the cover off and have a look. Let's see what sort of state the belt is in. Presume that's bits of belt. Not very conclusive, but answers a lot of questions why the oil light was on. So next step, let's take the side of the engine off and get to the belt itself. That's actually the oil pump drive belt, which looks alright. They never seem to be bothered, but this is all sitting in oil in the sump, and the pickup we just looked at draws the oil up into the engine. And obviously if it gets blocked, you've got low oil pressure, which can be catastrophic. Right, now we're getting to the belt. There's a monumental amount of stuff to take off. Wheel off, inner guard off, go to the top, take all the wiring off, all the plumbing off, drain the water out of it, disconnect the battery. the dipstick. Now that seems pretty clean. No debris has got up to there. Happy days. Right, I've got a rock cover off, as you can see. I now need to take the throttle body off. Screw there, screw there, screw there. To get to this bracket underneath. Now annoyingly, this plastic bracket has to come off, but you can't get it off because that bolt can't come out because of this. No, this is just Ford all over. No thought whatsoever. Alright, and we're getting the guts of it. This is the cover we need off. But I need to take off this auxiliary belt tensioner to get the whole tensioner off. I think I have to take that one and that one off just to get the bolts for the adjuster. To get it more bolts behind it, crank pulley off, and then we'll time it up. Right, water pumps off, alternators off, aircon pumps off, so let that hang there. This bolt is monumentally tight, so I need to take the starter out up there so I can put the locking tool in to lock the flywheel and loosen that. But first I need to get it on time. Now to time it, there's a little bolt here, which is easy to see, that one. You take that out, there's a pin you push in and you rotate the crank till it hits that pin and that puts it on TDC. That's the pin you put in to locate it. These ones lock the cams and these are to do with the cam advancement. We'll get to them later. Everything laid out on the bench nicely. Rock cover, air pipe, all the bolts associated with a sumper there. Injectors with all its bolts. Coil packs with all the bolts. That was to do with the fuel pump. Throttle body, inlet manifold, which I presume they're referring to that as an inlet manifold. And auto data, alternator bolts, the auxiliary belt tensioner, water pump pulley, the cam hydraulic, advancers, I think, yeah, water pump. And I've started taking the bolts out and keep them in order from the side casing, but I need to support the engine before I take the rest out and get the engine mounting off. So yeah, lots of bits and pieces. And that's the starter. Take the starter out, that locks the flywheel. Back to the top, now we've got the crank located in the correct place. We can now pop these cam locks on, and there's a little piece of the cam there. There you go, ends up in a square. We can put these locks on, nip them up on that one, bolt them in, and that's the cams locked in place, and that's the engine timed so that I can take the starter out, lock the flywheel, that's fixed. Side can come off, pulley can come off, belt can come off, everything's in the correct place. Annoyingly, this one, when you try and locate it, the oil feed pipe for the turbo's in the way. So I'll have to whip that bolt out, pull the pipe out of the way, and hopefully that'll just drop into place. And incidentally, to get the starter top bolt out, you have to take the gear linkage off. Just so well thought out, these. And that's the flywheel locked. So I have to loosen the main crank bolt, and it's going to take a lot longer bar than that, I can assure you. Okay, crank pulley off with the use of a very short bar. Monumentally tight because this pulley isn't keyed, so it has to be so tight the bottom crank pulley can't move, which is ridiculous. Anyway, I've taken all the small bolts out down the side of the casing, and there's just the 13-headed big ones that are basically the engine mount. There's a couple at the top I'll get from the top, but there's one sneaky one hidden down this little tube here. Don't forget that one, you'll never get the cover off. Again, I've just kind of lined everything up. Front casing bolts, rear casing bolts, and I took the crankshaft timing sensor out because I didn't want to damage it. Right, cover's ready to come off, it's loose. But there is a couple of sneaky ones. You see on the back of the water pump, there's a bolt top and bottom where the pipe goes into it. I don't know if you can see it through there or not. Anyway, you get them from this side. They're a little bit painful to get through. You can just see where I've snuck through there, pulled that harness or pipe down and got the bottom one. And then that should be good to go. That should come out of there. Obviously I've took the engine mount off, took the engine mount bolts. There's nothing that can jack it up on because there's no sump on it. What I did, I just jacked it up on the edge of the casing while it was attached. You can see I put 2 little pieces of wood into the drive shaft and I've just let the engine fall gently about 10 mil onto the drive shaft, and there's still an engine mounting at the back and a gearbox mount at that side, so it can't go anywhere, in theory. Okay, there we have it. I've taken the tensioner pulley off, but the belt doesn't look that bad. It feels very brittle. I guess it's all the bits in here. It's absolutely rock hard brittle, like. Yeah, that's. They're lucky they haven't. No teeth have come off that, really. Anyway, I think we've been pretty lucky with that. Yeah, oh yeah, you can see all the bits of belt falling off it. In there. That must be what's gone in the sump and blocked the oil pickup. Mad. Mad, 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 mad. Rubbish. So this is the reason why the crank bolt is monumentally tight. Cams are locked in position, can't move. Crankshaft's locked in position by the locking tool where the starter was. Also the timing pin. But look, it's oil belt pulley, crank pulley. Nothing locates them. They just sit on a smooth shaft. So as you can imagine, the torque setting for that bolt, well, I'll show you at the end, it is monumental. Brilliant engineering. Brilliant. There is a little block filter, a filter in the block. I've cleaned it and I'm going to put it back in. I should have showed you before I took it out. It was pretty dirty. It just lives in there. That goes in there. And there's a little grub screw holds it in. Now my good mate Graham Reader told me about that. There's no mention of that in any manuals anywhere. Nothing in auto data and all that. So yeah, it just nips up into there. So yeah, cheers for that, Graham. It was pretty dirty. New belt on. Focus, please. Thank you. New tensioner on. Bolt torqued up to spec. Pull the pin. Bang. That's it. All done. On tension. A lot of tension on these. There you go. So not much more I can show you of that other than put it back together the way it came apart. But this is the torque setting. It's crazy. 60 Newton meters, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. So you need a big bar to do that. It's crazy. And also there is another small pin when you put the crankshaft pulley on, just to locate the pulley in the correct position before you tighten it. because the timing sensor picks up off the back of that pulley. So don't forget to put that pin in or it won't start. And don't ask me how I know that. Anyway, I hope that's been useful. Thanks for watching. You know the deal. Click the buttons, blah de blah. Thank you. Moment of truth. Will it start? And will the oil light go out? Had the fuel pipes off, so it should take a second or two, but here I go. Hey! Get in. Oil light went out immediately. God, I'm so relieved. But I knew it would go out.